Education and Early Childhood Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the government is very pleased to speak on this motion, Mr. Speaker, because the government, since taking office 2.5 years ago, have put a significant effort on ensuring that the goal of having healthy, safe, positive, and inclusive learning environments become at the forefront, Mr. Speaker. The fact that students are bringing this forward today in our high school, from Moncton High School, is even more special, Mr. Speaker, and even more important that this contributes to the work that has been undertaken by the government, by the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development, by the teachers of New Brunswick, by our school districts, Mr. Speaker, by our schools, by parent organizations, by community organizations. A lot of work has happened in 2.5 years, Mr. Speaker, since taking on this file in our school systems. We've been faced with a significant amount of issues. I remember the very first day in office, Mr. Speaker, on my desk was a large file, and it had on the top of it Moncton High School. Mr. Speaker, we remember why Moncton High School is so special, not only for the initiative that they brought forward today, showing leadership, but the leadership that students and parents and teachers in the community showed during the challenge that was faced on my first day in office. They were facing for many years, Mr. Speaker, of a healthy and safe learning environment at Moncton High School. And I went to Moncton High School around mid-October, just after being sworn in and visited. I was asked by the media after visiting the hallways, down in the book room, other places in the building. I was asked by the media, would I send my own children to Moncton High School in this condition? And I said categorically no, Mr. Speaker. Categorically no. The conditions that that school was in, Mr. Speaker, was deplorable. The health and safety has been a priority of this government for Moncton High School, but for all of the schools, all of the students in New Brunswick, Mr. Speaker. And the conditions of our buildings are just one aspect of making sure we have healthy and safe, positive, inclusive learning environments, Mr. Speaker. And overall, in this mandate, the government is investing $400 million, the largest amount on record of any one mandate of a government to spend on our school infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. $400 million on making sure we have healthy and safe learning environments for our students of New Brunswick, whether it's the structural review of all of our schools, whether it's the replacement of schools like Moncton High School, whether it's also the water testing of our water fountains, Mr. Speaker, making sure that there's healthy and safe, positive learning environments. When it comes to bullying, Mr. Speaker, it's very important that students are engaged. It's very important as well that the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development listen to students, Mr. Speaker. And again, we commend the students of Moncton High School for bringing this forward and showing leadership. I am very excited when I see students that are engaged in learning. You know, we often hear about students in our province and in our country that are disengaged from politics, disengaged from partisan politics, from political parties. And yes, that may be true, Mr. Speaker. But what I've also learned in my experience as member of the Legislative Assembly over 14 years, what I've learned especially as my time as Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development, is that students are not, while they may be disengaged from the political process and partisan politics, party politics, Mr. Speaker, students and young people are not disengaged from making a difference in their community. And they are not disengaged from making a difference in their schools. And very impressed of the students of Moncton High School for bringing forward the Youth Bill of Rights, the work that they've undertaken on bullying. And I can guarantee to the students of Moncton High School and to all of the students of New Brunswick that we listen very carefully, that this information that's brought forward by the students of Moncton High School will help inform the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development as we continue the work that we're doing to ensure that we work together so that each and every student reaches their full potential in a stronger province. It's so very important, and even more important, that we not only talk about this issue, that we're actually putting actions in place that respond to the issue, that prevent the issue of bullying from happening in the first place. Mr. Speaker, I have two daughters, one in grade 4 and one in grade 1. And I'm very proud of my children, as all parents are, Mr. Speaker, of their children and want the very, very best. I'm very blessed to have two healthy children, Mr. Speaker, that go to school every single day. And I'm very fortunate, Mr. Speaker, and I know that I don't take that blessing for granted. When my children go to school, we talk about respect. We talk about inclusion. We talk about positive learning environments. We talk about differences in our students and our friends and the people in our classrooms. And we make sure to instill in our children that when they go to class at their schools, that no child, no student, regardless of their differences, is better or worse than the other. There are differences, and differences are important. Differences are to be valued, Mr. Speaker. And it's very important that, that we instill this in our children, we instill it in all of our children and the people of our province. And we've been working very, very hard, sometimes to the criticism of others, Mr. Speaker, the efforts that we've placed on inclusive, positive, healthy learning environments, Mr. Speaker. We've been criticized for this work, but it's in response to what students need and what students have asked for. Respectful environments where people can learn, be treated with respect regardless of their differences, whatever those differences might be. The students of Moncton High School make me very proud that they've brought this forward today so that we can celebrate what student engagement is all about, Mr. Speaker. Student engagement to be responsible and independent and involved with their learning. That's why this year we've also made sure that we've made available the program Tell Them From Me. And this is an online program where each and every student this year, from grade 4 to grade 12, have had access to an online survey program where they can provide direct feedback to their school, their parent support committee, to the province, and to the Department of Education. And this is a significant investment that allows for this to occur because we value what students have to say. And we can't no longer say that we're here for the students, we're here for the children. The students and children are the leaders of tomorrow. Our students, as I've said in my first time running in office when I was 20 years old, came second, but our young people are the leaders of today. They no longer need to be considered and belittled as leaders of tomorrow. And Moncton High School students with this motion, through their member of the legislature, has shown that they are the leaders of today. And we have a responsibility as legislators to take this very seriously, which we have in the past. When we formed a ministerial advisory committee on anti-bullying, we made sure that students were involved. We made sure that we had an advisory committee. We brought forward legislation last year that actually made bullying and cyberbullying a serious misconduct. But we've got more work to do, further work on the definition of bullying. And so we will very much be looking at the documents and using those documents to continue to inform us of the best directions to go forward with, Mr. Speaker. And it's important as well that we put the resources needed. There was a question this morning about where $5 million of savings through district reorganization is going in our school system. And I'm really pleased that while we had to make tough decisions on the number of school districts and administrative positions, that we've maintained the $5 million that savings allows for, and we're able to redirect the $5 million to inclusive education, to training and effective practices in our classroom, which also includes this year, which I'm pleased to announce today, $500,000 that's going towards anti-bullying and positive learning environments, Mr. Speaker, this year. $500,000 more dollars. $500,000 more dollars will help to pay for the 2 bullying prevention coordinators, one for each sector, to oversee, coordinate bullying prevention and awareness across schools. We'll also help work and streamline on the reporting protocols that we have available to make sure we can track and follow up appropriately and properly. We also need to make sure that we incorporate a further definition of bullying to really understand and be aware, Mr. Speaker. We created an annual Bullying Awareness and Prevention Week, the first ever in the province of New Brunswick, which was held last fall. And, Mr. Speaker, we also observe New Brunswick's annual Anti-Bullying Day in December. We have anti-bullying resources that will be developed, prevention information that are placed regularly on our online system. Mr. Speaker, we're providing professional development for school-based leaders. We're working with school districts to ensure that we're consistent with reporting and tracking. As I mentioned about the definition. As well, Mr. Speaker, we're working to ensure that we involve students in this process. And I'm very much looking forward to the work that has been started and that will continue through an informed, responsible discussion that the students of Moncton High School have been putting forward, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we're providing new resources to provide better support students on individual pathways to stronger personal achievement while they strive to reach their full potential. Bullying is unacceptable. The government of New Brunswick, the opposition in New Brunswick, the community in New Brunswick, the Department of Education, we have made a stand together that bullying, disrespect, discrimination in any form in our schools and in our community is unacceptable, Mr. Speaker. When we talk about field trips, or we talk about school activities, or we talk about where students are placed in their schools, we talk about how we provide support for children and for families, Mr. Speaker. All of these items are being considered. I'll give you an example, Mr. Speaker. When we had, prior to taking office, it was brought to my attention from disability groups that when we had evacuations of our schools through fire drills and evacuations, that all of the students left the school building, except, Mr. Speaker, those that were not able to be mobile, those that were not able to be accessible, those in wheelchairs, Mr. Speaker, were left in the school building as a protocol to wait for the fire department to show up at the school. All other students and staff left, and the children in wheelchairs remained in a classroom while supposedly the school was in danger. We worked with the Fire Marshal's office, Mr. Speaker, and we provided an enhanced protocol to make sure that when there's a fire drill, real, or a practice, that every child means every child, Mr. Speaker, and that we make sure that we have an evacuation plan that respects every single child for the dignity of every life and value, Mr. Speaker. And these types of decisions that we take are not easy decisions to make change, to change protocol, to change policy. I'll give you another example, Mr. Speaker. Just last year, things we're trying to improve and make different. Field trips. There was a school, Mr. Speaker, that organized a field trip, $30 a student. It was a fair distance from school, Mr. Speaker, so the $30 was charged to each student. But, Mr. Speaker, the bus was returning, would be later than 3:30, ordinary time. So there were two factors: students that couldn't afford the $30 and those students that required an educational assistant were not allowed to go on the field trip. Those students, however, were offered an alternative field trip, one where they could walk from the school to a local art gallery, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, while good intentions were brought forward, this was an example of isolation and discrimination. This was an indirect message sent to all children that there was a different value that we place on students because of their income and because of their disability. Mr. Speaker, we're changing that policy. We're making sure that all students mean all students, Mr. Speaker. We're making sure that if all students can't go, no one will go, Mr. Speaker. That's the positive message that we're putting forward to initiate change in how we do business. So yes, it's name calling in the school playground. That's a serious issue. It's also even more aggravated assault. It's continuous harm put on others. Those are all very serious. But it's how we all govern ourselves personally. It's how we make decisions around rules and process and procedures. And it's the actions that we put forward, whether intentional or not. Most are not intentional actions. But we bring awareness forward, we bring understanding, we work together in civilized, responsible dialogue, and we make changes to these processes to make sure that we are respectful, to make sure we do not discriminate, to make sure that we are inclusive and positive and have a healthy learning environment for each and every student. And while we do that and place that priority and put resources and redirect and make sure that we put these engagement, it's important that we involve our partners together. It's not the Minister of Education, it's not the Premier of New Brunswick, it's not the opposition or the government, it's all of us together, including the students in our schools that live it every single day. And we can learn a lot more from students if we stop to listen. And I can guarantee to the students of Moncton High School that we are stopping to listen, we are accepting this motion, we'll support the motion as presented by you and by the members opposite, and we'll make sure that we use this information that you brought forward to continue evolving and informing our decisions to make for healthier, more positive, more safe learning environments so each and every student can succeed and succeed in a stronger province together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.